There is a hidden hormone that might be sabotaging your weight loss. Imagine you're working very hard to stay healthy, eating right, exercising, doing all the right things. But still, you're not losing weight like you thought you would. Well, the answer might actually be related to something inside all of us. A little-known hormone called insulin. Insulin is a hormone made by our pancreas, and it's kind of like a sugar guide in our bodies. When we eat food, especially things like bread, rice, or sweets, they break down into glucose, which is a form of sugar. Insulin helps take that sugar from our blood and moves it into our cells. It's like a key that opens the door for sugar to enter cells, giving them energy to work and grow. But here's the tricky part. If we have too much insulin in our blood for too long, it can start working against us, especially when it comes to weight. When there's a lot of insulin in our system, our bodies start to hold on to fat instead of burning it. This can lead to a cycle where losing weight feels nearly impossible. And here's the surprising fact. Studies say nearly 1 in 3 adults in the US have something called pre-diabetes. That means their blood sugar levels are high, and they may have too much insulin, which can make weight loss very difficult. So in this video, I will show you everything you need to know about this problem, and I'll cover easy, everyday steps to help keep insulin levels balanced, so your body can support healthy weight loss. Now that we know insulin is an important hormone, let's take a closer look at the differences between sugar and fructose, and why it's so important for our health, especially when it comes to weight.
Love this question. So glucose is also called blood sugar, right? And glucose is your body's favorite source of energy. So make a fist right now with your hand. Okay, so as you're doing this, the muscles in your hand are burning glucose to contract. And for everybody listening to us right now, the cells in your brain are currently burning glucose to understand what we're saying, right? Every single part of your body is burning glucose every nanosecond to keep you alive. And as human beings, the main way that we provide this very important glucose to our body is by eating foods, specifically by eating 2 categories of foods. Starches, so that's bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, oats, and sugars, anything that tastes sweet, from an apple to my favorite triple-layered chocolate cake, okay? So we eat starches and sugars and we give glucose to our body. So you might think, okay, I want lots of energy. Who doesn't want energy? So if glucose is my body's energy, I should give my body as much glucose as possible. I should eat as many starches and sugar as possible. Well, that's actually not the case. I love to take the image of a plant. Do you have any plants at home?
Many.
Okay, so you know that in order to keep a plant alive, you need to give the plant some water. But what happens if you give the plant too much water? It dies. Exactly. And the human body is similar. Some glucose, everything's going great. Too much glucose and problems start happening. Most of us are giving our bodies too much glucose. And this leads to a whole bunch of symptoms. Cravings for sweet foods, chronic fatigue, brain fog, inflammation, faster aging, hormonal issues, and then long-term the development of type 2 diabetes.
Okay, so what effects does consuming too much sugar have on our overall health? And also, why is it so hard to avoid it?
Sugar, what I have to consume to get to that level of fructose. Because I say this in part because most of us don't realize that we're consuming sugar.
That's right, because it's hidden in all of the food. That's exactly right. We don't even know. We say, oh, I never even add sugar to my coffee, therefore my sugar consumption is 0. Wrong. That is not true, okay? Because it is hidden in plain sight in virtually every processed food in the entire grocery store. 73% of all of the items in the American grocery store and in the British grocery store are spiked with added sugar by the food industry for its purposes, not for yours. Because they know when they add it, you buy more.
And how much does that look like in teaspoons then?
The upper limit is about 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day.
The allowance, the recommended allowance.
The upper limit.
Okay.
The recommended allowance is lower than that.
Yeah.
Okay, but the upper limit is about 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day. So in alcohol terms, that'd be like 1 drink. So if you have a drink a day, you're staying below your threshold and all is fine. What if you have 2 drinks per day? Well, it depends on how well your liver works. Maybe how much exercise you have, how much total body mass you have, etc. What about if you have 3 drinks a day? You're going to get pretty tipsy. Maybe you shouldn't be driving a car, right? What if you have 4 drinks per day? They might have to, scrape you off the floor of the bar with a spatula. And what if you have 5 drinks per day? You're a friggin' alcoholic is what you are. All right? The point is the dose determines the poison. Well, the same is true with sugar. So we have an innate capacity to metabolize about 12 grams of fructose per day. By the way, that's for adults. For children, it's 1/3 of that, 4 grams of fructose per day. Okay, 4 to 6. So we're talking very little, But when you think about, for instance, a kid in America, 29% of kids in America consume the National School Breakfast Program breakfast in school. Okay, 29%. So what is the National School Breakfast Program breakfast? It's a bowl of Fruit Loops and a glass of orange juice. That is 41 grams of sugar. The upper limit for children in terms of their metabolism is 12 grams per day. They got 41 grams, and it's just breakfast. What do you think that's going to do? Now, if a calorie were a calorie, and if glucose and fructose were the same, then you say, well, you got to get your calories somewhere. But because fructose is not glucose, because fructose is more like alcohol, because fructose's toxicity has nothing to do with its calories, that is a huge overdose, and it has metabolic complications.
All right, let's assume that we screw up and we have a problem with insulin. What exactly is insulin resistance? Well, imagine insulin is still trying to unlock your cells, but the cells stop responding as well as they should. They ignore the insulin, so the pancreas has to make even more insulin to get the same job done. This can lead to even higher insulin levels, which tells the body to hold on to more fat, making it harder to lose weight.
The beginning part of that insulin was to get the fuel in the right spots. And at the beginning of that message, there was one little listening device, one receptor that was saying, yep, my cell that I'm living in needs this fuel. But as the noise and the signal rises, the amount of insulin your body is making rises in response to the excessive amount of processed foods and carbohydrates that we're consuming. That long gone is the time where teenagers eat a couple of times a day. They come from the era where food was going in every couple of hours. And indeed, without that food, their bodies got crabby. That insulin, that glucose lowered, their insulin was a little lower. And that was the right move. But in our lack of, the comfort crisis, don't let them feel uncomfortable. Give them what they want. Our culture keeps putting those processed food, giving them a snack. And as you added that food, as you added all of those sequential carbohydrates, not for 1 or 2 times in life, but every day for that age 7, 8, 9, 10, up into those teenage years, each month after month that you did that, you raised the production of how much insulin your body was going to make because you kept putting a bunch of carbohydrates in the blood. And your blood can only hold about a teaspoon, a heaping teaspoon worth of sugar. So every time you overate, and my gosh, they're great. They're designed to make you eat more. So you would consume more than that tablespoonful or teaspoonful of sugar. And every time you pushed the limit, your insulin would rise a little bit more. And It whispers. It doesn't tell you this is happening. Parents think they're doing the right thing. And now they've got a teenager with acne all over their back, cystic acne in armpits, because we've added hormones to, hormones of their sex hormones to this insulin hormone, which also dictates how our fat-based hormones work.
How does insulin resistance affect our health? If the body keeps ignoring insulin, blood sugar levels can stay too high for too long. This is a big reason why people develop conditions like pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Over time, high insulin and blood sugar levels can affect many parts of the body, leading to fatigue, weight gain, and even more health problems. High insulin levels signal the body to store extra energy as fat instead of burning it. So, if you have insulin resistance, your body holds on to more fat, especially around your belly. This fat can make insulin resistance worse, creating a cycle that makes weight gain even more likely. High insulin also makes you feel hungry more often, especially for high carb or sugary foods, which leads to eating more and can make weight management even tougher. So what are the signs of insulin resistance? Insulin resistance often develops silently, but there are signs you can look out for. You might notice increased hunger and cravings, feeling tired after meals, or even finding it easier to gain weight around your belly. Some people develop dark patches of skin around the neck or underarms called acanthosis nigricans, which is another sign of insulin resistance.
Physical signs of insulin resistance could be something called acanthosis nigricans, which is basically like dark spots that can be around your neck, mostly in behind of your neck. It could be under armpits or foldings in your body, can create that velvety and like a softer, darker areas. So if you are wondering why these brown areas that you're getting on your body, even if you're African American, you will see that some areas of your skin will be more softer and darker than your typical skin. So that is one sign that you will know if you're insulin resistant. And another sign is, of course, if you are having kind of high blood sugars in the morning, like 100 or above, that definitely can tell you that your body is insulin resistant and is not able to bring your blood sugar down by the time you wake up. Other signs of insulin resistance could be actually fatigue. So if you're constantly tired and sleepy, that could be a sign of insulin resistance. If you're not able to lose weight, that's another big factor. So if you have a lot of insulin in your body, you are not going to be able to lose weight. And if that's what you're suffering from, then definitely you should consider being tested for insulin resistance. If you have an abdominal circumference that is large, or typically, if you have a belly, those type of fats will definitely make you insulin resistant. And sometimes you will see that you are trying to lose weight and it's not going anywhere. Again, that can be a sign of insulin resistance. If you have high triglyceride in your blood, if you have a low HDL in your blood, like let's say doctors will test, they may not tell you anything about this, but if your triglycerides are high, if your HDL, which is a good cholesterol, if that's low, that is a good sign of insulin resistance as well. Again, if you have a fatty liver, like if your ALT, AST, your liver enzymes are elevated for no reason, they do a ultrasound and they find a fatty liver. Again, these are common signs of insulin resistance.
Why is it important to know about insulin resistance? If insulin resistance continues unchecked, it can lead to pre-diabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes. Both conditions raise blood sugar levels, which, over time, can harm your heart, kidneys, and nerves, and make weight loss very difficult. This is why catching insulin resistance early and managing it is essential for overall health. Now that we understand insulin resistance and how it can lead to weight gain, let's dive into some other hormones that play a role in how our bodies use energy, burn fat, and manage weight. Insulin doesn't work alone. It's part of a larger hormonal network. Here are 3 other key hormones that work with, or sometimes against, insulin in the body: cortisol, leptin, and glucagon. Cortisol is known as the stress hormone because it's released when we're under stress. It has a big impact on blood sugar and insulin. When you're stressed, cortisol raises your blood sugar to give you a quick energy boost. Think of it like the body's way of saying, get ready for action. But when cortisol levels stay high for too long, such as with chronic stress, it can lead to higher blood sugar levels over time. This causes the pancreas to release more insulin to balance things out, which can contribute to insulin resistance. High cortisol can also increase cravings for sugary and fatty foods. When cortisol and insulin are both high, the body is more likely to store extra energy as belly fat. So managing stress is a big part of balancing insulin and keeping weight under control. Leptin is a hormone that tells your brain when you're full. It's made by fat cells, so the more fat you have, the more leptin your body produces. But in people with insulin resistance or excess body fat, the brain sometimes stops responding to leptin, a condition called leptin resistance. When this happens, the brain doesn't get the full signal, so you feel hungry even if your body has plenty of energy stored. This can lead to overeating, weight gain, and even further insulin resistance. Leptin and insulin work together to help regulate appetite and energy use. But when leptin resistance sets in, it can be very hard to control cravings and avoid weight gain. While insulin helps lower blood sugar by moving sugar into cells, glucagon does the opposite. Glucagon is produced by the pancreas and raises blood sugar by signaling the liver to release stored glucose when blood sugar levels are too low. Think of glucagon and insulin as a team that balances blood sugar. Insulin brings it down after you eat, and glucagon brings it up between meals. For people trying to manage insulin resistance, keeping a balance between insulin and glucagon is important. This is one reason that eating balanced meals with protein, fats, and complex carbohydrates is helpful. It gives your body the fuel it needs without causing big spikes in insulin or glucagon. These hormones, insulin, cortisol, leptin, and glucagon, work together in a complex system that controls hunger, energy use, and how much fat your body stores. When they're balanced, the body works smoothly. But if insulin levels stay high due to resistance, it can disrupt cortisol, leptin, and glucagon as well. This makes it harder to lose weight and manage hunger.
At insulin-resistant patients, and one of the other tests that I like to say, do you have a problem? Let's look at your vitamin D. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, a fat-based hormone that you can test without my permission. There's tests throughout on Amazon, or that you can prick your finger, look at your blood test, put your blood on a little sponge, mail it in, and say, what's your vitamin D? And it should be above 50. Healthy brains need it to be above 50. But if you want to see if insulin is roaring, that insulin dictates what happens to fat-based hormones. So vitamin D is one of those fat-based hormones. And when I have patients coming to me saying, I have a few problems, but really this vitamin D has been low and I'm trying to get it to be higher. I'm taking all these supplements and I can't seem to make it raise. And now, instantly in my mind, I know that the cause is almost always not that they're not swallowing, reputable pills. It's that their insulin, the dictator of what happens to fat in your body, is saying, put it in storage, put it in storage. And as soon as that vitamin D is in circulation, it will then be dictated to by your excessive amounts of insulin and stored in your fat.
So what are the best ways to fight it and prevent it? Well, there are many ways. Let's take, for example, the only butter day approach, which is designed to address insulin resistance by focusing entirely on high-quality fat consumption.
0.6, 0.5, I can't get my ketones to rise. And indeed, it is a place where we said, all right, this is the real crux about what happens with insulin resistance, is I'm doing your ketogenic diet and I don't feel nearly as good as I did that first couple of weeks. It's not working for me anymore. And I'm like, let's just do an experiment. For the next day, I want you to check your ketones and glucose 3 times a day for the next 3 days. That's not normal. We don't usually make them prick that much. But I want you to eat only butter today and then for breakfast tomorrow morning. So 24 hours, I want you to eat butter. And by gosh, when they eat just fat, they eat just fat. What happens is, of course, there's no carbs in that. And the stimulus to produce insulin is now so now they've gone from 4 cups of insulin and now they produce 3. And the next thing that happens is their body's already in shape to make ketones. So we don't have to wait 3 days like we did when they first start the ketogenic diet before their body's making ketones. Within 24 hours, boy, they have a ketone number of, 2.4, and, they're back in that level where the brain is flooded with a bunch of ketones. Their energy is good again. And they're like, oh, so the answer is to eat butter the rest of my life? I'm like, not quite. But this is a great teaching moment to say, you're still making excessive insulin. What the butter did was lowered the insulin from wherever you were to this new low. And you could do that by, first of all, you were satiated. You felt good. People think it's easy to eat butter. And I'll tell you, by the end of the first stick, you're like, oh God, I don't want another bite of butter ever again. But what's happening is this excessive amount of fat that's going in keeps them from snitching or craving, and it doesn't stimulate insulin. And now you've got a lower insulin, another wave of ketone.
During this time, you eat only butter, usually with a minimum target of around 6 to 8 tablespoons. This high-fat intake helps reduce cravings, lowers insulin levels, and promotes ketosis, a metabolic state that supports insulin sensitivity. By simplifying intake to only butter, it reduces dietary complexity, allowing the body to focus on fat metabolism instead of glucose regulation. We can also take medications, but I only discuss natural methods, like avoiding glucose spikes by eating in a specific order.
That's right.
But
That's
it is
right.
reversible.
It is very reversible for a while. So let's be clear and honest about this. There is absolutely no doubt that what doctors learn in medical school is wrong. We are told, and I know because I was told, that diabetes is a chronic, progressive, unrelenting disease that never gets better, and that you will need medication, whether it be insulin or oral hypoglycemics or whatever, for the rest of your life. Garbage. Total, complete trash. Now, Virta Health, numerous other studies of various diets show that you can absolutely reverse type 2 diabetes. In order to do so, you have to get the pancreas to make insulin properly. And the only way to do that is to get the liver to respond to insulin properly. One way is to not challenge the liver, give the liver a rest. Well, it's metabolizing all that refined carbohydrate and sugar. Drop the refined carbohydrate and sugar and make your liver work better.
Little keto?
So, a ketogenic diet's the extreme version of this. It's not the only way, but it is a way. Paleo diet is another version.
Fasting?
Intermittent fasting will give your liver a chance to burn off the fat that's accumulated over the last 16 hours. There are many ways to skin this cat.
Calorie counting?
Almost never.
Calorie restriction?
Yes, calorie restriction. But it's got to be consistent and long-term. And we've shown, numerous studies have shown, that as you restrict calories, that leptin resistance does not get better quickly. It takes years for that leptin resistance to finally go away. Like 5 years before you change.
But what about reversing diabetes? Is it even possible? Now, let's look at some real-life stories of people who successfully managed their insulin levels and achieved their weight loss goals. Hearing about others' journeys can be inspiring and show us that making small, consistent changes can lead to big results. Take Sarah's story, for instance. Sarah struggled with weight gain and constant fatigue. She learned that insulin resistance might be behind her challenges, so she started with a few small steps. She balanced her meals with more protein, healthy fats, and vegetables, and she began taking daily walks after each meal. After a few months, Sarah noticed that her cravings decreased, her energy levels improved, and she began to lose weight around her midsection. Then there's John, who had been dealing with stubborn belly fat for years. After learning about insulin's role in weight loss, John tried intermittent fasting with a 16-8 schedule, where he ate within an 8-hour window each day. He also started meditating to manage stress, which helped reduce his cravings. Within a few months, he saw improvements not only in his weight, but also in his focus and energy levels. Another inspiring story is Emily's. She realized that her busy lifestyle and lack of sleep were contributing to her insulin resistance. Emily committed to getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night and began incorporating weight training into her routine. Over time, these changes helped her lose weight, improve her insulin sensitivity, and feel more energized. Emily's journey shows us that getting enough sleep and adding exercise can be powerful tools for managing insulin. These real-life stories are reminders that managing insulin isn't about a drastic overhaul. With steady steps, you can make meaningful progress toward your health and weight goals. In conclusion, we've covered a lot today about insulin, its role in the body, and how it can affect weight loss. Understanding insulin can be a game changer when it comes to taking control of your health. We learned that insulin is a hormone essential for managing blood sugar. But when it's constantly high, due to factors like high sugar diets, stress, or lack of physical activity, it can lead to insulin resistance. We explored other hormones that interact with insulin, like cortisol, leptin, and glucagon, and how together they influence hunger, energy storage, and weight management. Then, we looked at signs that insulin might be affecting your weight loss, such as frequent cravings, belly fat, fatigue, and even skin changes. These signs can be a helpful guide for knowing when it might be time to check in with a healthcare provider about insulin resistance. And finally, we reviewed practical lifestyle strategies for managing insulin: eating balanced meals with protein and fiber, staying active, practicing intermittent fasting, managing stress, getting quality sleep, and staying hydrated. Remember, managing insulin isn't about perfection. It's about consistent small steps that can lead to big improvements in health over time. By prioritizing these habits, you're setting yourself up for a healthy balance of insulin, improved energy, and better weight management. If you enjoyed this video, check out another one: the horrible health habit that makes your life shorter: prolonged sitting.